Harakatawantok, Yerakam Pacific Waves from RNZ Pacific. I'm Kuroi Hawkins in for Susana Suiswiki. Coming up, shock and outrage over the US president's call to restart nuclear weapons testing.
We still live with cancer, contaminated lands, intergenerational trauma.
The Cook Islands Prime Minister plays down the impacts of suspended New Zealand aid, and Manu Samoa defeat Namibia to keep their Rugby World Cup dream alive. A French Polynesian anti-nuclear activist and politician is shocked at reports the US President Donald Trump wants nuclear weapons testing to resume. For 3 decades, France tested nuclear bombs in French Polynesia, as did the United States and Great Britain in other parts of the Pacific. Hina Moiura Morgan Cross was 7 when the last bomb was detonated. Ms. Morgan Cross told Lydia Lewis it's hard to believe something like this is even happening in 2025.
First, I was very shocked. I had no words. I had to do an interview for Tahitian media, but I was very shocked. To be honest, shocked because I thought that how can it be possible in 2025 that states like United States want to continue some nuclear experimentation, also after all the work that has been done by the anti-nuclear movement. Also last year, the Nobel Prize for Peace have been received by Nihon Hidankyo, an anti-nuclear activist organization from Japan. So I was, very, very shocked. But in another way, we all know that Donald Trump is a no-filter president. I also thought that he just wanted to respond that, but without really meaning to do it.
And you're a member of French Polynesia's Assembly. Has the issue been raised?
I'm very proud of some of my colleagues from the Assembly of French Polynesia because they did text a resolution that is still at the Assembly. It has not been voted yet, but to stand against this decision and also ask the President of France to stand next to the Assembly of French Polynesia to say to United States to stop this idea of restart nuclear testing.
So even if this does not go ahead, are comments like this acceptable?
We, the Pacific, have been really the nuclear playground of United States, Great Britain, and France. But we are today, I think, aware of the nuclear legacy on our lands, on our people also. I think Kiribati are aware. The Marshall Islands are really involved into the anti-nuclear advocacy. So, I don't think that they will do it again. Also, we have an old but still active treaty, the Treaty of Rarotonga. Thanks to states like New Zealand, the Pacific has to stay anti-nuclear area.
What lessons have been learned?
I felt that it was so deeply irresponsible and so also cruel because it's just forgetting what they did on our people. We still live with cancer, contaminated lands, intergenerational trauma from all those nuclear experiments. So, restarting nuclear testing anywhere in the world will be a real crime against humanity, as we are aware of what a nuclear weapon, what a nuclear explosion, what a nuclear bomb do to people. I really think that we in the Pacific are the living proof that nuclear testing destroy lives long after the blast. We still faces the horrible legacy, the violence of the nuclear weapon our people, and still today, despite the fact that it was 30 years ago for us in French Polynesia.
And this is personal for you. Can you please just explain for those who haven't heard your story before just how personal this is?
My personal testimony is something that can be common in many families in the Pacific, but it started with my grandmother with a thyroid cancer during the 90s, and she was 30 years old during the French nuclear test. And then it was her first daughter, my auntie, who had a thyroid cancer and a breast cancer. And then my mother and my sister, who had thyroid problems. So my mother had to have surgery, and my sister is condemned to take pills for the rest of her life. And for myself, I was diagnosed with chronic leukemia when I was 24 years old. We are sadly an example of a family from a land that has been the playground of of the nuclear power for experimentation. It's why I like to denounce the fact that we were the guinea pig of the French states.
The Cook Islands Prime Minister says he's requested a meeting with New Zealand's Prime Minister and Foreign Minister over their concerns with his country's bilateral agreements with China, but he was turned down. A second round of funding to the realm nation has been paused by New Zealand over the issue, bringing the total in withheld revenue to almost 30 million New Zealand dollars over 2 years. At the centre of the falling out is Wellington's insistence that Avarua should have been more open in its consultations before signing deals with China earlier in the year. Joining me is RNZ Pacific journalist Caleb Fotheringham. Kia ora, Caleb. What's the latest from the Cook Islands?
Kia ora, Kiroi. So the Prime Minister, he declined an interview with RNZ, so we haven't spoken to him ourselves, but he has spoken to local media, Cook Islands TV, and he spoke in Cook Islands Māori, and we translated it, and he made a few points, but the 2 points that really stood out to me was that he has requested a meeting with New Zealand's Prime Minister and also the Foreign Minister, who have both declined to meet with him in person. And they want the issue with these agreements signed with China to be dealt with through their officials, so foreign affairs officials. And the other point that the Prime Minister made that has stuck out to me was that he feels he hasn't been told by New Zealand what the problem is with the agreement. So he feels like he hasn't actually been explained properly why New Zealand is unhappy with the China agreement signed earlier this year.
And how is the money pause going to affect the Cook Islands, obviously now with the extension as well?
Yeah, and it's a lot of money for the Cook Islands, $30 million. But Mark Brown says it's not going to affect them at all because they've had a great year for their economy, and that's driven by a really bumper tourism year, which has had an incredible comeback since COVID. So he said everything's going to be fine, everything from education and health, which this money usually gets allocated to, is still going to run how it's meant to. And he actually made a sly jab at New Zealand saying that their economy isn't doing so well and everyone's leaving to Australia, but the Cook Islands is fine.
Did he make any other comments, Caleb?
He has reiterated the similar comments that he has made before. So that is that the Cook Islands is not the same Cook Islands it was 60 years ago when New Zealand needed to help the country with every little bit, including at international events and speaking for the Cook Islands. He said the Cook Islands has matured and that the young Cook Islanders, especially now, they can fill in the place that New Zealand once held for them, and they can speak at international events, and the Cook Islands can speak for themselves. So that's something that he has been saying pretty much since these agreements were first signed with China.
Has New Zealand said anything in response to these latest comments?
No, the foreign minister has decided to reiterate his comments that he's made earlier this week, But in the statement, they did say that Prime Minister Mark Brown continues in public to make statements which is inconsistent with the free association model. So thinking that Mark Brown's comments do not align with New Zealand's view of the special relationship, and perhaps this is another example of that.
And just briefly, while we're on the Cook Islands, quite a big milestone in terms of deep sea mining. Cook Islands obviously being one of the countries looking at this. What's happened this week and why is it important?
Yes, so the exploration contracts given to 3 companies were set to finish in 2027, and that was a 5-year contract. And the Cook Islands Seabed Minerals Authority, which is the government agency in charge of seabed minerals in the Cook Islands, has decided that's not enough time to do all the exploration needed to do to decide if mining can happen safely from an environmental aspect. So they have decided to extend the exploration contracts by another 5 years. So what that means is that a decision on mining will not happen until at least 2032. We're still waiting to get companies' reaction to the news and the other key stakeholders, but it is a pretty big deal.
Maitaki, thank you, Caleb, and thank you for keeping us up to date on the latest in the Cook Islands.
No problem.
It's been a busy week of Pacific sport, which will continue into the weekend. Joining me is our senior sports journalist, Iliesa Tora. Malumbula, Iliesa, let's start in Dubai with Samoa. How is their last-ditch campaign to qualify for the Rugby World Cup going?
Bulaminaka Talafalava Manu Samoa managed to beat Namibia 26-8 early Friday morning in their second round game at the final qualifying tournament where they are trying to qualify for the 2027 Rugby World Cup. 4 tries in that game ensured that they finished the game with a bonus point. On the points table, right now, they are leading with 10 points, 1 above Belgium, who they will face in their final match next week in what is going to be a must-win game and a winner-take-all game, because the winner in that match will fly to Australia in 2027 for the World Cup. So Samoa did enough in that match. Scott Seo, the former Wallaby, also featured prominently in that game. In the end, Samoa coming out 26-8 winners over Namibia. And also, maintaining their record against Namibia, which means now they have played Namibia 3 times and they won all 3 test matches so far.
And what was the message from the Samoan camp after the win?
Captain Theo McFarlane told the media post-match that he was happy with the win, that they were able to get that in the end. But he admitted they could have done better. There were more opportunities for them to score more points. And then he also pointed to the fact that they were not able to fully execute their moves. In saying that, we could see in the match that there were a lot of basic errors in knock-ons, which frustrated them towards the end. They were also not able to finish off moves and claim at least 1 or 2 more tries. But then he said that he will be stressing that as they prepare for Belgium. So Samoa just needs to draw the game against Belgium, or better even win, to get that spot at the 2027 Rugby World Cup.
Leaving Dubai now and heading to Europe, the Flying Fijians in action?
Yes, the Flying Fijians are going to be in action again on Sunday morning our time. They will be playing against France in their second match of their 3-match November tour of Europe. Mick Byrne has named his starting lineup, and he has basically kept the starting 15 that played England at Twickenham, that started that game against England at Twickenham last weekend. But one of the interesting inclusions in the Flying Fijians match day 23 is the inclusion of prop forward Tim Hoyt, a former England under-20s rep who had declared his interest to play for Fiji. So he's on the reserve bench and could be playing his debut game for the Flying Fijians against France. Joshua Tuisova, the man they call the bus, and who has been playing his rugby in France since 2013 when he first got there, said he is looking forward to playing against some of his teammates, clubmates, and some of his friends in the French team. And he reckons it's going to be a tough game, but he is also silently confident that the Flying Fijians will be able to match the French team and try and emulate their 2018 win, where they had won 21-14 against France in France 7 years ago.
And a bit closer to home now, in Port Moresby, there's some soccer action on.
The Melanesian Cup edition for 2025 is happening in Port Moresby. Last night, the defending champions and the host, Papua New Guinea, beat Solomon Islands 1-0 in the men's competition. And in the women's competition, PNG defeated Vanuatu 4-0. There's going to be more games happening this weekend with PNG back in action. Fiji also coming into the picture there. And interestingly, the winner from the Melanesian Cup gets the opportunity to fight off for a World Cup playoff as one of the representatives from Oceania getting into that World Cup playoff. So Melanesian Cup soccer tournament or football tournament happening, and the competition will continue over the next week with the finals later on next weekend.
Naka Kalevu Ili, thank you so much for your updates and preview of the weekend sport.
Naka.
That's Pacific Waves for today. Next week, Susana Suisuki is back with Dame Jacinda Ardern, her first guest on the program. For all episodes, head over to rnz.co.nz/Pacific. We're also on Spotify, Apple and iHeartRadio. From myself and the RNZ Pacific team, Mode Amanda, have a great weekend.